Welcome to another episode of Real Talk Live. I'm your host, Krypton Case. I'm joined here today with my co host, the Viking, and two special guests. One is Rokan, and the other is Hugo. Hello, gentlemen. What are you doing?
Hello. Well, I just had my afternoon coffee, chilling, and I'm fully awake, so I guess that's a positive.
And how have you guys been?
Almost the midnight hour over here.
Yes, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my setup tonight, but my audio wouldn't work. Then my got that working, then my camera wouldn't work. So that's why I have a pretty. It's not a great picture of John Cena. I think I would be better myself if I was shirtless, but it'll have to do. Of John Cena's Peacemaker. I'm glad to have the two guys here so we can talk about the Suicide Squad in spoilers for the next hour or so and just enjoy. I think we all enjoyed the movie, so it's good to have you guys here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, guys, thank you for joining, and we'll be talking about the Suicide Squad in kind of in detail with spoilers, Easter eggs, breakdown, and everything. So before we jump into that, let's begin with your first impressions, the non-spoiler part that you can say about it. So let's begin with Sean.
Yes, sorry, I was checking to make sure my audio was okay. Yeah, so the Suicide Squad. So this is a film that the marketing didn't really do anything for me, to be honest. You know, I thought the trailers were pretty decent, they were okay, but didn't get me too excited. Thought some of the posters, some of the still images, everything just looked okay. I wasn't hyped like I was back in 2016 because that one consisted of Batman, Joker, Will Smith. You know, they were in the marketing big time. And I think there was more of a buzz around the DC universe back then because we were just coming off the back of Batman v Superman. And actually, the ending of Batman v Superman, where, spoiler alert, Superman dies, bleeds into Suicide Squad, especially that scene where Amanda Waller's walking to the meeting with the government generals or whatever they're called, and the guy holds the Superman shirt, you know, signaling to us that the world is mourning Superman. So, and there was also a good line, what would happen if Superman flew into the Oval Office, you know, and assassinated the president. Pretty good commentary there. So fast forward 5 years later, the DCEU was very different. And now we're coming off the back of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So it's pretty weird and ironic how this all turned out. But of course, the DC universe is in a different position right now. And the Suicide Squad was not a sequel, wasn't a reboot. It was James Gunn coming to the DC universe on the back of getting fired from Marvel, then rehired. But this was DC's, this was James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And look, I first thought that maybe it was disrespectful towards David Ayer because he made the first one. It was actually a success financially. Why not bring him back? Stuff like that. But so anyway, I went to theaters last Friday. And the reason I went was not because of the marketing. I went because I'm a DC fan. I'm a movie fan. You know, I want to see a new movie that's in the theaters. And I've always gone to see the DC movies opening night, right from Batman v Superman to now. So went and I had a great time. I really enjoyed this film, guys. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the cinematography was amazing, the soundtrack, the use of the music. I just had a really, really good time, and I haven't had a good time like this in theaters in a long time. I really haven't. You know, I was just buzzing coming out of the cinema watching this, and then the two kind of post-credit scenes as well got me interested for the future. I just thought, you know, it's complete and utterly James Gunn, you know, when he's given freedom, and it's different how at Marvel they have a formula and it works well for them. It's a big thing. But over at DC, even though it's a little bit ironic, they don't give all of their directors freedom. But, you know, look at Todd Phillips and now James Gunn and Zack Snyder when he did Man of Steel and stuff like that. But it's just interesting to see a director have their creative vision. And I enjoyed this film. I really did, especially the third act with Starro and what happens there with John Cena's character, Rick Flag. I just really, really had a good time. And I don't understand the hate from some people, you know, about it being too maybe the jokes being stupid and stuff and ruining the movie. I don't think so. I don't think a dramatic moment was ruined with a cheap joke at the end, like maybe Marvel do. I actually thought when the jokes were played for comedy, they were played for comedy. But when the dramatic moments were brought into the movie, they were brought in for a dramatic moment. And it worked, especially that scene, the bus with Ratcatcher and King Shark and Peacemaker and Bloodsport. So, yeah, of course, some of the jokes didn't land for me. That's okay. I think the action made up for it. I think the comedy that did work made up for it. And yeah, the Suicide Squad for me was a really, really good time, an enjoyable time. If I was to give it a rating out of 10, I don't really like doing ratings, but I would say it's around the 8 mark. You know, I just think it's a solid time going to the theater, and I think it's one of the better DCEU movies that we've gotten. And I actually would say that it has more in common with Zack Snyder's entries into the DC universe than, say, Birds of Prey or Wonder Woman 84 or even Shazam or Aquaman, because of some stuff I'll touch on later. But yeah, Suicide Squad for me, I've been tweeting about it nonstop, and I haven't met a lot of friends doing that, but I won't let anybody ruin my enjoyment of the movie. Really, that's my
Rakan?
thoughts.
Yeah, so going into this, and I'm literally coming off of it. I saw it last night in IMAX. The trailers did nothing for me. I kind of thought that it was just basically them just focusing on how, goofy and fun, the whole like DCEU was going to be. And, with Gunn coming in, I like James Gunn's, first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I enjoyed Super, and I enjoy Slither, but there's that fear of him coming into it being a Marvel director going into a DC property, because you kind of have like flashbacks to Joss Whedon's Justice League. Yeah. So like I said, the marketing didn't do anything for me apart from the Rebellion trailer, which I guess we call it the PG-13 trailer, which like I thought okay, that really should be the tone that you're trying to sell us, is more kind of like serious war movie type of film with jokes in. But I walked into it because I do love I'm a DC fanboy, and I want these movies to be good. I want them to succeed, and I like the fact that we are seeing a portion of the crew come back, and as well as the fact that you're bringing in Idris Elba and John Cena, who as a WWE fan, like, it was cool to see John Cena in the DC universe. And coming out of it, the movie surprised me. I knew the movie was going to be a bloody good time. I knew I was going to enjoy the action sequences, but I didn't expect it to have so much heart to it. I didn't expect it to be, I didn't expect to kind of like well up during the end. We'll get to that. And so that part really kind of like surprised me, that it was this marriage of heart and yet R-rated, bloody gore fest, And I thought some of the jokes I did laugh at. Some I thought were strange and didn't hit well. And I thought they could have written the bad guys a whole lot better. But I do think, I'm not going to be like everybody on the wormhole of Twitter that's kind of like, oh, this is the best DC movie ever, or anything like that. It's not for me. That's not what I'm thinking, because I still think there's some DC films that are better than this. But I felt like this is a good, solid entry into the DC universe. And the post-credit scenes, got me kind of interested in a potential future, which we'll get into that. And it makes me want to say, okay, I'm fine with Gunn sticking to these characters in this role. I don't want to see him do James Gunn's Batman or James Gunn's Green Lantern or anything like that. But if it's with the Suicide Squad world and these characters, I wouldn't mind. So, and following to what Sean said with rating, I would probably give this around an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, it definitely surprised me in a lot of good ways. So I couldn't be happier being surprised. So that's it for me.
Awesome. And Hugo?
Well, as for me, I remember the news and hearing about Gunn's firing, and then Warner Brothers swooping in to give him anything they thought they could offer him, especially Suicide Squad, as they were so keen from the marketing of David Ayer's first film to make it Guardians of the Galaxy meets Deadpool. So once they had him, I was quite worried, because I thought that he wasn't going to get freedom he wanted, and that they just say, we want you to do what you did for Guardians of the Galaxy, and you did that. But no, they were very, I was happy to hear that they just let him do what he wanted to do. They only asked one or two mandates, which was something that he was happy to agree upon. That was the use of Harley Quinn, because he said he loved writing her. She's one of my favorite characters, and so that sort of really made me think, okay, I'm going to give this a chance. I saw that first trailer, was not convinced, but when I saw the film, seeing the jokes in context, that changed the humor for me and made me feel better about it. This was what I kind of hoped for, which was more The Losers, another DC film that came out during the time of the Dark Knight trilogy with Idris Elba and Jeffrey Dean Morgan in, which was like an ensemble movie from one of the Vertigo comics that was like Vertigo's version of the Suicide Squad, except the cast of characters didn't change or anything. It was one series. It was kind of like The Losers meet Super, which was one of my favorite James Gunn films I have seen. And I understand I haven't seen all of his filmography, but Super was a great film. And I like that the costumes gave me that vibe, that it made sense a lot of the way things were in the film, that the squad was already established. He talked to David Ayer a lot about how things went down for him in the first film, and they had this agreement saying, well, I don't want to contradict what you've done, but I don't want to heavily reference it. And they just had each other's backs, which is what you want from directors, especially in a time where we found out everyone loves Zack Snyder as a director, unless you're just Whedon. So yeah, it really changed my expectations. Got higher and higher as the release date came quicker and quicker, and we were very lucky to have it come out early in the UK over here, while you guys overseas had to wait a little longer than us. And I have to say, it is an incredibly great film. I respect that other people have their negative criticisms about it, but some of them I think have got the wrong idea of some of what was presented in the film. And I can't argue with them, unfortunately, but I can say that I think I can't get a translation going really in what they're talking about. But everyone's really good in it. John Cena is the best performance, I think, since when he did Legendary for WWE Studios. He goes from a very dangerous idiot, a comedic figure, to a very terrifying and polarizing figure by the end of the third act. And I think that the future is bright for him, despite the whole issue with Fast and Furious and Taiwan and China. I think his career is going to be fine because of Peacemaker.
I just to say, because I know you're a big WWE fan, and I was like, I'm still a fan of it, but I'm not as an active fan as I was, because some of the creative decisions WWE have made and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But I'm still a fan of the company and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I loved how you talked about Legendary there from John Cena. I think that film came out in 2010, I think, or 2011. Yeah, it's a WWE Studios one, and he's pretty solid in that. He's pretty good, yeah. So I like that you have some love for that movie, because John Cena, I think Rokan, I think maybe I had a conversation with you about him as well. I was saying that he's really improved as a dramatic actor, and then you brought up Marine and 12 Rounds and his earlier kind of WWE studio movies. And then I thought to myself, actually, yeah, he was a movie star before he was a movie star, but just not on the scale that he is now. And he actually gave some solid performances. Actually, in 12 Rounds, you actually feel for his character in the situation that he's in. So yeah, John Cena's been, I think now he's finally getting those roles that put him out there into the forefront. Fast 9 and now the Suicide Squad, and he's getting his own Peacemaker show. And I think that has the potential to do very, very well because of his popularity from WWE and also now with the Fast franchise. So yeah, I think it's a great choice. But yeah, I just wanted to pop in there and say that the Legendary is a top performance from John Cena.
So I think it all started with him making that small cameo as an extra in the gym while Goldberg was working out in WCW's Ready to Rumble.
Yeah,
holy shit! I forgot.
Yeah,
he's come a long way.
Yes,
but we all enjoyed the Suicide Squad movie. And Casey, did you want to say anything else about the movie?
Yeah, sorry, I was just I was just checking the chat. Well, as for non-spoilers, I would say that I did like the movie. I did think that it was very well made, and I do think that it was a very James Gunn film. Um, I expected, when they signed James Gunn, I was right from the start. I was very excited for it because I knew that Gunn is a really good director and he would bring his talents that, believe it or not, Disney actually suppresses that over there. So James Gunn is different from other Marvel directors in the sense that a lot of people say that, um, in Marvel, the emotional or the serious moments are always overshadowed by the next joke that plays out just right after that, and it undercuts the emotion of the scene. That is kind of true, but that's not on the entire MCU. It's a trait mainly that comes from Whedon and Russo brothers. So it's mainly just found in the Avengers movies. I don't think the other movies have that as much, maybe once or twice, but I don't think it's as prominent. Specifically, not with James Gunn. When you actually look at the humor in his movies, that's always the DNA of the Guardians team. Like they are that way. That's where the humor comes from. So if people thought that he would actually just come into Suicide Squad and just make it Guardians of the Galaxy squad, that's not what was gonna happen, and that's not what happened. So I was always, optimistic, and I was looking forward to this. And now that I've seen it, I really like it, and I got what I was expecting. I was expecting a James Gunn movie, an R-rated James Gunn movie, and that's what I got. So I pretty much, enjoyed what I saw. I did, however, have some of the complaints about the movie that is kind of in the nitpick territory because um, when I find something that's very close to being perfect, I always find like, oh, this could have been better to make it just perfect. So stuff like that. It's just that probably would have made the movie way 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 better. So well, it's just James Gunn's choices, and that's what he chose, and that's how he directs his movie. So that's all fine by me. However, the things that I didn't like are um, firstly, Harley Quinn, I think didn't. Uh, I think that she was very inconsistent throughout the movie. Some of the scenes she was very, very much Harley Quinn, and then some of the scenes she became a female character that's not Harley Quinn. And to me, I thought that that was a very interesting take. I don't know if that came from Gunn or Margot Robbie, but yeah, some of the scenes I didn't like. But the action scenes with Harley are all great, and I did enjoy that. Um, and the other thing I probably would not say now because that would have to be in the spoiler talk, so I'll just save it for that. So yeah, we can quickly jump onto the spoiler talk now.
Yeah,
And
just maybe just I just go through a few of these comments in the chat.
sure.
W Mir, I think if I'm pronouncing that right, just let me know if I'm not. He goes every time Warner Brothers tries to marvelize the DCEU, it fails at the box office. Look at the track record. I would say that's true about Justice League 2017. I would say that's maybe true a little bit about maybe Shazam because it was marketed as a lighthearted maybe comedic movie, but it actually had some dark moments in the actual film. So I don't know, to be honest, if that's true to be saying that because the first Suicide Squad you could argue was very marvelized. It was PG-13, had lots of music in it, stuff like that. So yeah, but I don't think this film is Guardians of the Galaxy 2.0, as KC said. I don't think it's
Yeah.
just a Marvel movie in DC format whatsoever. Just look at the opening sequence. It's not. It's just really, really not. It's full of blood, gore, F-bombs, nudity, and I think James Gunn pushed it maybe at times maybe too far into the R rating. So I wouldn't agree that it's marvelized in any way. And then Steve Casson as well. We should have him on as a guest sometime. He says hello to Hugo, and he says, I'm John Cena. Yes, I am John Cena, but I have a better body. I personally love this movie. Was it mean-spirited and aggressive? Yes, but it is an R-rated film on the Suicide Squad. And yeah, this is what the Suicide Squad is. I think Grace Randolph had a lot of negatives about the film, which is in her right. She didn't like the film. That's okay. But what was she expecting? It was James Gunn. It was R-rated. It was the Suicide Squad. I really don't know what she was expecting whatsoever.
I mean,
yeah.
Assault on Arkham, the animated movie, is R-rated for all the stuff you see right here. It's a gore fest with nudity and cursing.
Yeah.
And that was the film everyone said David Ayer's film should have been.
Exactly.
Whenever they try and act high and mighty and talk down about that.
Yeah.
It should have been Assault on Arkham. It should have been this. The animated movies do it better than DC.
Jocelyn Edits, that's a pretty cool name, goes, it surprised me how bad the trailers for the Suicide Squad were compared to the movie, since 90% of today's trailers are equally, if not at a better quality of the final film, but this wasn't the case, and that surprised me for the better. I'm the exact same. I thought the trailers just weren't interesting enough for me to get hyped for this film, but then I sit down and I watch it, and I'm hyped watching it, and I had a great time with it. So yeah, I think the marketing for this movie, just like Shazam, just like Birds of Prey, was pretty poor, which is something that DC are going to have to sort out. Maybe it's a hype problem because there's no huge star like a Will Smith or like a Jared Leto. Maybe it's a huge IP character because there was no Joker or Batman or Flash in this movie, but it definitely needs to sort out its marketing because it's definitely a problem for DC going forward. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is, when you want to, when you want to market something, you have to show kind of like, obviously, the lighthearted moments with humor, but you have to show the stakes. You know what I mean? And I think the problem with the Suicide Squad marketing was that you didn't get a sense of the stakes. You know what I mean? Like, they marketed the film like it was, the wackiest wackathon adventure of the summer. You know what I mean? And like, the movie is, I mean, it's a wacky adventure, but it's, Gunn has said that he wanted to treat it like a war film, like a 70s war film. And it should have had more of an emphasis on that portion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely the posters that give you that vibe of classic war movies from the 70s, like the Mighty Ducks. I couldn't think of anything else straight off the top of my head, but maybe I'm getting the film release wrong for the Mighty Ducks, but not the Mighty Ducks, no. The film will
I watched the Mighty Ducks if it was a war film, it couldn't be.
Yeah. The Mighty Ducks, oh my god.
It was a film that had ducks in the title, was a war movie or something like that.
That would have been a good Mighty Ducks film. They joined the Suicide Squad.
Wow, Disney went hard on this.
Definitely give you that.
And before we go on, I just put up the spoiler alert banner on screen. So if you don't want spoilers, you can either mute the stream or turn it off for now until we have that banner, on the screen. So moving forward, we'll be talking spoilers. So there's your, spoiler alert tag. And now we can start discussing spoilers. Yeah, Sean, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I just thought that maybe spoilers. The opening sequence where half of the Suicide Squad is brutally murdered, like Captain Boomerang. I was actually sad to see Captain Boomerang die because he's actually a perfect casting, isn't he? He was just his interaction with Harley Quinn at the start was just brilliant. Harold's, how you back in prison, stuff like that. It's good world building, and it's actually a good nod to the first movie because they actually have been in a movie together. So yeah, I was disappointed he died because I thought maybe he would have been a good addition to the actual Suicide Squad. But then again, which other character do you take out of the squad that ends up being in most of the movie? Pete Davidson's character, Blackguard, I think it is. Don't get much time to be with him, or Weasel, or Savant. They're all pretty interesting characters, but yeah, they were just brutally murdered in the first few minutes. And it's kind of James Gunn's way of saying, yeah, this is what we're doing, and this is nothing like the first movie. It's going to be R-rated and all this stuff. So yeah, I thought the opening sequence was pretty full on, and I wasn't expecting to see Pete Davidson's face blowing off like that. But yeah, Savant was an interesting character because he's presented to be this badass or this very deep thinker, and he's looking around at all the action around him, and then he just decides, no, I'm getting out of here because everybody's dying, which I don't know if is a cowardly move or a smart move, because I don't know much about his character from the comics, but I was just very intrigued how he opened with him and the way he was watching everything. So I would love to see maybe more backstory to that character and to see like what was he actually thinking, and was there a reason why he was kind of a lot of the screen time was presented with him at the start. Michael Rooker, of course, was in Guardians of the Galaxy, Walking Dead. That's where I got to find him and fall in love with him as an actor. But yeah, the opening sequence was amazing. And then, Harley Quinn just decides to take them all on, and she's the only human there, I think, mostly, and she's dodging everything, and she survives along with Rick Flag. And then we actually cut over to the real Suicide Squad. It looks like Amanda Waller sent 2 squads in at the same time. Maybe she knew the first squad was going to get was bait. Maybe that was her intention. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I thought the opening sequence was cool. And when you start a movie with Johnny Cash, it's not a bad start.
Yeah, and look, I thought that the movie delivered on what it promised for the most part. The character that's, like you said, were pretty interesting. The choices were made interestingly, especially for Boomerang. I wasn't expecting him to die, especially because we know that would be expected, like he's just the guy with the boomerang, even though he got a new one. What would he do, right? So I was expecting him to die, and he did. So yeah, I was fine with it because there's a giant kaiju in the town. What is he gonna do? Like, So I understand why he was killed, and the plot of sending the team A to just distract from the actual team, which is team B, that was brilliantly done, I thought. And the interesting thing about that also is that Amanda actually sent Rick Flag and Harley in with that team. So if she thought that that team was expendable and they could just die and be just a distraction for the actual team, then she also thought that Rick Flag and Harley Quinn were that too. So that was interesting, and even though they survived and they rejoined the others later on, that was very interesting, and I loved how that played out as well, like the structure of it. First you see that team and then they die, and then you go to the other team, and then it cuts back to 3 days ago, and then we get the whole story, and then it rejoins that. And I also like that the whole movie is cut into chapters, and each chapter has a ridiculous title. So that was very much like a comic book as well. We know that Zack Snyder's Justice League did that earlier this year. So I did appreciate that. And this, I knew that James Gunn would just make the ridiculous characters as ridiculous as they are on the pages, and that's what he did. So I was really happy with not to get too ahead of of the current discussion, but I was really happy with how the Starro character turned out. The graphics were great, the texture was amazing, the size, the movement, all of that was great. And we'll get into detail about that later on, but I did enjoy the look of the movie. The story was okay, the characters were great, and it's just awesome to see the movie beginning with an actual team just being annihilated.
Yeah, and it was like it's that you're thrown into the story straight away. They're actually on the one. I thought from the trailers there's going to be 2 missions. One mission where the first Suicide Squad dies, and then the second is the real squad and the real movie. But it's all the same, and we're thrown into it from the opening.
Yeah. So after that scene, we get the and I also enjoyed that they don't just introduce everyone at the front end like the previous one. And they, like the air cut basically does, like gradually going through each character and then talking about them. That was pretty cool. And I really enjoyed that part as well.
Yeah, and to me, like it throws you like right into the middle of the action. Like it's kind of like Gunn's way of saying, at least him trusting that you may be familiar with, the first Suicide Squad, being like, all right, we know that these guys are cannon fodder for for the missions. It just kind of like throws them like right into it, and it was a cool way to kind of like get you into it. And the John Murphy music is playing, and you're sitting there going like, all right, we're back, and we're watching them, watching the massacre play out. Like I will say, for the Pete Davidson death, I think Ariana Grande fans are probably going to be jumping up and down with glee. Sure. But yeah, like it did surprise me to see Boomerang die, because he was one of my favorite things about the first Suicide Squad movie. And he was also put all thrown like all over the posters too, so you kind of assume that he would be a part of the team. But I mean, I guess Gunn wants to kind of pull like a 1-2 switcheroo on it, and just kind of be like, all right, well, here's the real Suicide Squad right here, or at least the squad that you're going to be stuck with throughout the movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. I do want to add one little thing. During the opening credits, that is actually a Dawn of the Dead reference, because the opening credit song is a song called "The People Who Died" by the Jim Carroll Band. And if you know your Zack Snyder, that plays during the end credits of Dawn of the Dead, which James Gunn did right.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
That's cool.
So I thought it was a cool kind of like, I guess, I don't know if it's if you consider that an intentional, like, intentional nod to Zach. I kind of look at it as, considering the fact that Gunn's been supportive of Zach. So I kind of like look at that as that.
Is there a character that, apart from Captain Boomerang, because I think we all would have liked him to stay on, is there a character that ended up dying in the opening credits that we would have liked to have seen more of? TDK? Someone brought him up in the comments. TDK.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's because I love Nathan Fillion, so I would just would like him to stick around more, I guess. But honestly, Savant, just because the fact that he's just kind of like a funny German character, I just think he would have been a funny addition with like King Shark and Peacemaker and all those people. So, especially considering the fact that Peacemaker is a very pro-America type of dude, it'd be funny for him to work with. Savant.
Yes, you are.
Wasn't Savant, right? What was his name again?
Savant was Russian. You're thinking of Javelin, but I think Javelin's Swedish.
Javelin, yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, sorry, Javelin. There you go.
Yeah, if you asked me during the movie which character, I would have said Weasel, just because it's a weird character, and I was kind of he jumps out of the aircraft and he jumps into the water and he drowns, and like everyone's like, nobody checked if Weasel could swim. I thought it was funny. And then the camera there's just silence. You have a man in the water and her crew looking at the monitor. I thought that was pretty funny, and I would have said Weasel because I wanted to see what can this character do? What's his power? Does it run fast? Does it claw? What does it actually do? But then by the end of the movie, it actually survives. So I'm actually happy with that. I'm more intrigued than anything. Curiosity killed the cat. So I want to see Weasel in the Peacemaker series.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I remember the film now. It was The Mighty Geese. Not The Mighty Ducks, The Mighty Geese, I believe it was called. That one movie. I mean,
well, they're bird animals, so I mean, it's.
I remember I did get one of my concerns was Boomerang dying, because I didn't see him on the main poster, which had Bloodsport and Flag and everyone you assumed was going to survive anyway, including Harley. So I got more G.I. Joe Retaliation vibes. I was worried he was going to get a Channing Tatum kill off, but at least they let Boomerang shout out to Harley, and Harley witnessed his death, and they at least had that moment, which made me feel a little better about it. It's like more of a, if you were to call it a reboot sequel, this film is more like G.I. Joe Retaliation. If G.I. Joe Retaliation did the clean up house right, rather than something like Punisher Warzone, if you like seeing that as a link to the 2004 one, or Ang Lee's Hulk and the Incredible Hulk being the same story carrying on with different players.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting one because I think this first Suicide Squad is canon to this movie, even though it's not directly brought in, you know, because we know that Harley, Flag, and Captain Boomerang have history with Amanda Waller, and they're friends. And even Harley references that Rick Flag was her friend, and even Bloodsport and Rick Flag have a connection from the military or the army as well. So yeah, I think the first one is canon to this. It's just not directly canon. It's just not like you doesn't have to reference every single thing.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate how James Gunn didn't shit on Zack Snyder's movies or on David Ayer's. Which
Sorry, Sean.
You can tell kind of like that, you know, he did respect what David had set up, and then I mean there is kind of like, you can tell that there's some kind of like consistency with the characters. I mean, you know, Harley has matured over Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, and same with Flag. You know, Flag's kind of like, you see him in this movie, Flag is still that idealistic, you know, American soldier that he was in the first one, but he has kind of like loosened up a little bit, which, I mean, that's not, you know, kind of like saying, that's not kind of like ignoring the past events. That's just character evolution. And I like that.
It's like, we haven't seen them for 5 years. We are feeling the 5-year gap between the two films when we see Harley, Boomerang, and Flag, and Waller as well. We know that those of us who've read comics know that Amanda Waller is going to have enough leverage to at least keep Task Force X going after the Midway City mission going not the way she planned. That she will be able to keep it alive, but it's going to be much more on the cheap, as we've seen in the film. And that, I think, is not our character. That's very much like something that you would expect to happen directly. Amanda Waller will take L's, but she will take L's with managing to stay in the fight.
Yeah. Casey, you got to watch the movie today, which I don't know how you stayed away from spoilers online, because I was pretty bad at it. I went into spoiling stuff. I just put up images from the movie, but I just wanted to talk about it and I wanted to get some clout. But what did you think of the pacing in this film? Some people were
I thought the pacing was really good. At the it's hard to talk about the pacing if it was intentional or not, because some of the scenes in the beginning, the first act, I thought were really fast, kind of like the previous one actually. And you know, I thought that some of the scenes were not, you know how there's some room for breathing at the end of a scene before it cuts to the next. I thought a lot of scenes were missing that, and apart from that, I thought that was very well made. Like every scene was just grabbing your attention. There was no filler stuff. But maybe if I wanted to make it shorter, which I wouldn't, because I actually wanted it to be longer. I wanted more time with Starro, and you know, I thought that one of the things that's what disappointed me in the movie was with Starro. I thought that he was built up really well, and the commentary surrounding Starro was pretty great. I thought that, you know, at one point I kind of you know, thought that Starro was a depiction of COVID in some way. Like you know, the thing that comes onto your face, and then Ratcatcher just immediately pulls up the mask and she's saved, and you know, other people are not using a mask or anything to prevent it, and then as soon as the Starface just sticks to your face, you're dead. So, and even like thousands of innocent people just died unexpectedly, right? So knowing how James Gunn is on Twitter, I kind of feel like that was intentional. So yeah. I did like all of that and the commentary about, how Starro actually is, the hive mind control and the lab experiments and all that stuff. I did like, but the actual Starro character, when it came out, when it appeared, I thought that they should have done more with it. Like, I thought that they killed it off pretty quickly. Like, it was just running around and they just ended up killing it. So I probably would have loved seeing 10 more minutes or 15 more minutes of Starro terrorizing everyone and how the situation is really, really dire. But yeah, that's just a nitpick. But yeah, apart from that, I do think that the movie was very well paced, and the overall 2 hour runtime, 2 hour 12 minutes or something, was pretty fine for the movie. And I would have, actually liked if it was longer.
Yeah, there's a scene, Rokan, where the Suicide Squad are sent in to rescue Rick Flag, and they're told by Amanda Waller that these people are dangerous, kill on sight and stuff like that. So they go into this camp, and they brutally murder this camp of women and men. And Peacemaker and Bloodsport are having kind of a competition with each other who can maybe get the best kill or who just looks more badass. And so and Polka Dot Man as well is there, and a King Shark eats somebody, and they brutally kill these people. And then they discover that Rick Flag is having tea with the leader of this rebellion group, and they're actually the good guys. Did you laugh at that scene and the reaction of the woman where she was just like, she was pissed off, but then she got over it pretty quickly? Is that too goofy for you? But did you laugh and did you like the scene?
Well, I mean, I'm a sick bastard, so I can laugh at somebody getting shot in the face or brutally murdered and stuff like that. That's just my sense of humor, I guess. So, I mean, like, I especially like Bloodsport and Peacemaker just having that competition, because it reminded me of like Gimli and Legolas and Two Towers, where they're just killing all the orcs and they're just kind of like trying to one up each other. So it reminded me of that, but getting into kind of like the reveal that they're all the good guys, and Alice Braga from like I'm Legend, she kind of gets over it like pretty quickly. I'm just kind of going like, you think, I mean, I get it, I get like the circumstances are a bit extreme, that they have no choice to rely on them, but you think that she would show like much more kind of like a distrust with Flag and the whole crew at that point. But I will admit, I did kind of like laugh at that scene. But that's not goofy for me. Okay, that stuff I actually think is pretty funny. But her reaction to it, I was like, be handled a little bit better.
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene. I thought it was I enjoyed seeing people brutally murdered, but I thought it was funny and it worked. But I would have liked her to be a little bit more pissed off, maybe.
Yeah,
because I'm sure there was her friends or somebody that she liked and stuff like that in that group. Maybe she kills one of the Suicide Squad, to get, I don't know, but I just put it like to see her a little bit more ticked off, a little bit more angry. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty good scene, and John Cena shooting those kind of poisonous darts was interesting, because I wouldn't think a character like him would use something like that. I thought he would use guns and knives, but he actually he's a pretty interesting range, which we'll probably get to see more in the Peacemaker series.
I would have thought, because Cena's obviously a pro wrestler, I thought they would have him like throw some dudes around or something like that. Because I mean, The Rock and Batista will do like spine busters and will do rock bottoms in their movies. So there's part of me that's kind of going like, all right, come on, let's get an attitude adjustment in here.
Yeah, John Cena probably doesn't have the pull to say to James Gunn, hey, I'm going to do an FU here. But when the Fast and Furious movies are very much Vin Diesel kind of owns his character, The Rock kind of owns his character, they're going to say what to do. I think John Cena is a little bit more respectful and probably lets the directors do their thing. But see Cena do an FU in a movie, you'd probably do it in Fast and Furious 10, probably.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
I certainly found the scene funny myself, and when it got to the reveal of Rick Flag having tea with the rebel leader, I just thought, you absolute idiots! This is why the Suicide Squad is supposed to be such a ragtag bunch of misfits. It works, and I think you're all a bunch of idiots for not realizing who you were killing. But I don't blame you, because we didn't know either. But it just worked. That was what one of the great things about applying humor was after David Ayer's one, which was more like very serious because of the morning of Superman. That I like to see this as post Zack Snyder's Justice League in the new timeline created after Flash changes everything in the what have been Part 3. That this is what the Suicide Squad is. This is what Amanda Waller has to recruit, because she is scraping the barrel all the time, and it's always random selection. Of course, this is going to happen on a mission. They don't get the correct intel or information. This is going to happen. And they're not going to care, or they're going to be also so many different emotions. Polka Dot Man's going to be embarrassed. Ratcatcher 2 will be embarrassed, but Peacemaker think, I do everything for peace, and then Bloodsport's just basically like in the briefing, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah. And also, before they were, going into that camp, Amanda Waller actually told them that, these are very bad people, they're very lethal and all that shit. So they didn't, they couldn't just go and ask them, they just did. And also there was that, Bloodsport versus Peacemaker thing that was going on there about who's the better one. So I guess that also played a part in, them not realizing what they were walking into and just killing off random people who are not the bad guys. And yeah, and some of them probably would have attacked them if they actually didn't start attacking. So that could have been self-defense or whatever. But yeah, we're not supposed to I don't think we are supposed to say that, oh, they're doing the right thing. They're villains, and I appreciate that they are doing bad things and they're killing innocent people and they are doing all these bad things throughout the movie, and it's not justifiable. However, some of them are. But yeah, I do appreciate when stuff like that happens, because like Eurocan, I'm just it's sometimes funny, but yeah, I do appreciate when realistic things happen. So yeah.
The Suicide Squad are sent into Corto Maltese to stop the government from using this secret project that's in Jotunheim, which is Starro. And so Amanda Waller sends in the Suicide Squad, and they have to stop them because they're going to use Starro to take on China or Russia or America. Use Starro for their own benefit. And there's a sequence where Harley Quinn is captured by the Corto Maltese military, or the government, and the president wants to marry her. He wants to marry her. He thinks it will be good for his election votes if he marries her, because the country loves her, because she's very anti-America or something like that. But those 10 minutes for me didn't work. I didn't like that scene because I didn't know if it was a dream sequence or if it was actually happening. And I just was bored within those 10 minutes. I just didn't find it interesting whatsoever. And the two of them have lunch and they make love and stuff like that. So for me, that scene didn't work at all. I think Harley was at her best in the opening sequence and when she escapes her captors. But did you guys like those 10 minutes with Harley?
Nope.
This was the moment that I'm sitting there in the theater and I literally just said, what's this shit? Because I felt like this was just written for Gunn to give Harley something to do. And yeah. I think the movie would have flowed better. You cut that out and just had her be captured, because it could just come say Harley, she's Harley Quinn, she's an American criminal, we can use her to our advantage, something along those lines. And instead they just throw in this random kind of wine and dine for Harley to give her something to do. And I felt it was also out of character for Harley at that moment, because with going from Suicide Squad and then Birds of Prey, we've established that in Birds of Prey it's about her learning how to be an independent woman, that she felt she didn't need to rely on anybody. And I felt like at that scene we had gone kind of like backwards. You know what I'm saying? And so I felt like this you could have just kind of cut out of the movie and it would be no different.
Yeah.
I for one loved it. It was like something straight out of one of the Amanda Conner, Jimmy Palmiotti comic runs from the New 52 and Rebirth, where you have your main story and then suddenly Harley goes off into her own world where a guest artist comes in and draws everything. It worked for what it was for me. The president of Kyoto Motis, or whatever the country was called, was talking about how it was just a surprise to me, thinking, wow, Harley is this inspiration to the country, and that a political marriage would save the stability of what's happened after they've just killed off the previous people in power, and then suddenly the two of them felt a romantic connection and then a sexual attraction, and it was played up for laughs. And I thought, that's typically Harley, and it was like a breath of fresh air from Birds of Prey for me, because I always say I'm a major Harley Quinn fan, and that film felt like it was. The more I tried to love it, it was like The Last Jedi for me. I was hurting myself and getting more upset from what I was seeing, because my hero in that film was just she was otherwise still grieving over Joker, and even if she was trying to learn to strive on her own, it wasn't executed so well as when we saw it in this film. That felt like, okay, we got through the grieving stage and now she's doing her own thing and she might have found new love, and then suddenly there's a bombshell there of using Star as a deterrent, and it might, children will be endangered. And I thought, after everything Harley's gone through the comic books with her relationship with children, the way writers have used her to sometimes kill children, I thought it was justified that she unfortunately had to kill this man she'd just fallen in love with over the last couple of hours because of that one red flag. And it all felt right. I mean, I think Harley needed her own story as a subplot for the film, as a way to not take over the entire thing, because the A story was really capture Starro, part 1 being that, and then part 2 is Bloodsport's arc as a leader, and then the B story was Harley, and they would come together and convene when they're going to try and rescue Harley. But Harley being Harley, she just rescues herself by accident. And she finds out that, like in the first film, that she's found a new group of friends that were kind enough to try and think of her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did think that, the story they gave her was interesting. Like, I do agree that the whole plot of the president and her getting married to serve his, his plans and all that stuff, that was done pretty good. But I just feel like that's not connected to the story at hand, and it kind of took me out of it. So if you just, cut that whole thing out, although I do agree that, some people do like it, so that's fine. But if you cut that whole thing with the guy out, and you just have the Harley capture scene and then Harley escaping scene, it just works perfectly for me, So the entire thing in the middle just takes it away from me. Instead of that scene, I would have definitely added more Starro.
Yeah, there was a sequence where the Suicide Squad is sleeping, and then King Shark is about to eat Ratcatcher while she's asleep, and then they have a cute moment, and like King Shark gets to understand, like, not to eat his friends, but he's lonely, he has no friends, and we get to see in the bus scene he's actually seeking love because he watches a couple kiss. But also in that scene, I thought it was funny how the rat was trying to give a leaf to Bloodsport, and Bloodsport's like, what the fuck do I want a leaf for? I get these rats out of here. And then John Cena was in his tighty whities, like you can see here on the screen on my profile picture. But I thought that scene was funny, but it leads into them on the bus and going undercover because they want to catch the tinker who will be going to this gentleman's bar. And that bus sequence was pretty interesting because we get to see backstory for Ratcatcher. And Kissy, that scene where it reveals that her father and how she became Ratcatcher, he was Ratcatcher 1. Did you feel that scene and the relationship then towards Bloodsport, and then John Cena's character actually looked over? Did you feel that scene had an emotional presence that maybe the rest of the movie didn't have? Because for me, I think the chemistry was good, but it wasn't as good as the first Suicide Squad between the cast.
Yeah, I did think that scene was executed pretty well, and I thought that, you know, the best thing about this movie is that it doesn't feel like you're getting this exposition, even though you are. It feels very organic, like characters ask you questions like they would in real life, and then you answer it, and there's your story exposition, right? So that's how it was done, and I really enjoyed that. And even in these backstory scenes, like with Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2, I thought was done pretty well. And for King Shark, you don't even need one. You just had that one shot that, King Shark looking at, the couple, and that was pretty well done. Like, that told everything about what that character wanted. And also later on in the film, King Shark actually goes on near an aquarium and makes, more friends. And that turns out when the glass breaks, that turns out, they actually started to kill him. So it's basically him learning about selecting wisely, when choosing your friends and trust issues and all that. I know it's probably not that deep, but it kind of relates to his character when he actually started making friends, and then he made another friend, and then that friend started to eat him, right? So there's a lesson there, right? So yeah, I did enjoy a lot of setups and callbacks that the movie did. And Ratcatcher 2, that scene was pretty good. And Peacemaker, I realized that every time Peacemaker said something, that wasn't supposed to be funny. That was him actually being determined. And like the way they ask him, the way he says that, I would do anything for peace. Like if it meant, eating a beach full of whatever, and then, all that stuff. And then later on he says, if I had to kill everyone, then that's still, I'll still do it. So that stuff is not meant to be funny, but we see it as funny because it's John Cena, but it's actually not supposed to be funny, right? It's him actually saying the truth, and that's what he would do. And I thought that was done pretty well. And I didn't expect to like Peacemaker because the outfit is fucking ridiculous. And it's John Cena, so I like John Cena, but he has never been that great of an actor. I do like him in roles. I saw 12 Rounds, I saw The Marine, I did like those. I saw him in Bumblebee next, and then I did like that. But he never stood out as this great character actor that I would love. But Peacemaker actually changed my mind. I actually liked the character a lot, and there was nuance to it. And same with Ratcatcher too. Like her story was pretty good, but she was the most relatable, I think, because she was always sleeping. And that's very relatable to me. But yeah.
I want to bring up James Gunn's use of his directing skills. Like the bus sequence is a flashback sequence without being a flashback sequence. You get to see the flashback in kind of the reflection of the window while the bus is moving. That's pretty well done. Or the fight sequence later on between Peacemaker and Rick Flag.
And there was
reflection of the helmet. Yeah, but the reflection of the helmet later on we'll talk about as well. That was brilliantly done. Or even in the cockpit of the plane at the start, the camera moves over from Hardy to Pete Davidson's character. I really appreciated those choices, definitely.
Yeah.
But Rokan, did you like that scene overall?
I did. I mean, I like I like kind of getting into the inside of these kind of characters more, especially for Ratcatcher. I mean, considering the fact that I'm a fan of tragic tragic characters, and you go into Ratcatcher's backstory. She's a tragic character, and you kind of like watch her in this movie, and especially before this kind of like goes down, you're kind of like watching her kind of going like, you're such a nice person. What are you doing with these people?
Yeah.
And you, like I said, you kind of get into the backstory of her, and you see kind of like that she's just kind of like been forced into this life of crime, which makes it even more kind of like tragic that she's thrust into this. But I love the character. I also like the fact that Taika Waititi plays her dad. I thought that was kind of a cool thing, considering the fact that when Taika Waititi was announced to be in the film, I remember people were thinking, oh, he's going to be the voice of King Shark, or he's going to be the voice of Starro, and they're going to use like his comedy talents, and they didn't. He plays a very kind of more serious and genuine type of role right here, which I liked. I also liked going into Bloodsport's fear of rats, and kind of how he has kind of like a shitty childhood, and kind of like the theme. I noticed there's a theme in this movie with parents.
Yes.
much like Zack Snyder's Justice League. You have Bloodsport, who is kind of this shitty, negligent father, and you've got Ratcatcher, who basically worships and idolizes her father, and they kind of like find that kind of like kinship with each other. And so I found kind of like in that scene there's kind of like that synergy between them that I thought was pretty sweet.
Yeah, even in Guardians, Gunn does
I
that
love
a
that
lot,
bus
like
scene.
with the parents.
I love Ratcatcher too in the entire film. She's like the driving force. She's the massive cheerleader that's trying to rally everyone together to be a team. Because Bloodsport is so indifferent to begin with. It's kind of like the film does give you so many callbacks to the first film in your brain, and the bus scene kind of is like what the bus scene is in this one, at the time where the characters can sit down and talk to each other about their pasts and things without Amanda Waller doing the dialogue narration. I love Taika Waititi's appearance as Ratcatcher 1. It was like I was seeing what he was telling us. I was like seeing him as he presented Jojo Rabbit to me, with the sort of the serious heart side to it that really got my emotions going. Not when he played Hitler in Jojo's mind. I mean, as a director, what he was kind of what reminded me of that. It was so superb. I love that. That's a recurring theme, thanks to Zach, is talking about parents and childhood with DC characters, and I don't think it would. I don't think the film would be as great as it would without talking about Bloodsport's past with his father and how that's affected him in the present, and being hardly father of the year towards his own daughter, and then Ratcatcher 2 having her adoration of her own father, but it wasn't one of those films where she gets that whole love for her father broken by some stupid revelation, because that can work in other films, but it would have ruined this film entirely if suddenly, we found out Ratcatcher 1 was somehow really not the person she believed he was, but in fact he was a lovely person, and his message for the whole film really was the message of the whole film, that even rats can be the most useful people, and the Suicide Squads are very much considered like rats in a sewer, that they're the lowest of the low. And it was beautiful that it was portrayed that way. It shows that James Gunn isn't all in it for doing humor. It's what carried over from the Guardians of the Galaxy's films that would work in the DC film, talking about parentage and childhood and the emotion there and the drama. That was one of the best bits that you can actually think of from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, was the character elements there. the only thing that carried through from those films, I thought, and that worked 100%.
Yeah, totally agree. And of course, they're on the way to that bar to get the Tinker, and they have a nice kind of moment where they all have drinks, they dance around and stuff like that. I enjoyed that scene, but I don't think the chemistry between the cast in this movie was as good as maybe the first movie. But David Ayer, it's very hard to beat his chemistry and his cast, because every single movie, no matter what it is, Tax Collector, Fury, End of Watch is it called, that one, the other one, I think. Even going back to Training Day, the scripts he writes, the characters, the chemistry is just really hard to beat. And I think the Suicide Squad from the first movie, the cast were sent on like not a military retreat, but some kind of training altogether. So like it that bond is there. So, but I did enjoy it, and they captured the Tinker, of course, to find out information of how to break into Jotunheim to obtain or stop the government from using Starro. But then we cut to Harley Quinn breaking out of the prison, and which I think is one of the best scenes in the movie. And it was definitely a highlight. I think James Gunn brought Harley Quinn to her lowest in this movie with the love scene and the president, but then brought her quickly back to her highest. Casey, that scene was awesome, and it's very similar to Birds of Prey because it takes place in a prison, like prison cells, and instead of blood, it's flowers this time. Instead of it's in her imagination. In Birds of Prey, it was confetti. In her imagination here, it's flowers, whatever that reason is. But yeah, that scene was awesome, and I loved how she just opened the doors, had the two guns, and shoots the guys at the table.
Yeah. What Birds of Prey wished it was as a prison breakout scene for me.
Yeah. Casey, did you like in terms of the action we've gotten from Harley in the past? Because Wonder Woman 84, the action with Wonder Woman, it wasn't that great, but then you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League and that's my Wonder Woman. Was that similar here?
Like I said, the character of Harley I had a little problem with, but I did think that the action scenes were pretty good, and like physically everything that Harley was doing was pretty good. In the beginning and during the breakout, and also in the final act, it was all pretty well done, I thought that. And yeah, character-wise, I would say that maybe Birds of Prey did the characterization a little bit better in some scenes, but physically, I think it was this. But out of all the three movies, I think that Suicide Squad did the best. David Ayer just knew the character, and the first time they introduced the character was, I think, the best version so far. And I think that the animated Harley Quinn series is actually the best depiction I've seen out of all this in the recent years. So maybe they should take something from that if going forward. But yeah, I still like the character. I still like her performance, and the scenes in this movie were pretty good.
Yeah, and in Rokan, of course, kind of in a parallel scene, the Suicide Squad is coming to save Harley Quinn, and she breaks out, and she gets to see the Suicide Squad breaking into the place she was captured. But then she's looking at them, and she's like, "What are you guys doing?" That whole sequence and the action, and I actually thought that them saving Harley Quinn was going to happen earlier in the movie, but it actually happens an hour into it. What did you make of that?
That scene to me, Harley goes full on John Wick in that scene. First off, I love the way it's shot. There's no kind of there's no shaky cam, fast cuts or anything like that. Because I just saw Snake Eyes, which has crazy amount of shaky cam. So it was nice to watch a full on fight scene filmed very well. I was smiling the whole time, just going like, oh, shit, this is awesome. Because I love the police station fight from Birds of Prey right there. I do like, how it was filmed and everything like that. But this takes it just a whole nother level because of how gory it is. And also, good song choice too. I didn't think, they would use the original version of Justice Gigolo by Louis Prima. I thought they would use the David Lee Roth version, the very more rock oriented one. But this, I think, works much better. But yeah, I had a big smile on my face the whole time, just seeing her kind of throw down, because that's you mentioned with KC how like he felt like he got his Wonder Woman back in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I felt this was the Harley that I knew and loved from the Batman animated series and from the first Suicide Squad. Just kind of like right here, even down to the red and black the red and black dress that she wore, which it's cool to see her finally kind of like rock that. So I thought that was pretty cool, and
Yeah.
I do like her kind of like coming out with seeing the crew, just being like, I like how she's kind of like touched by the fact that they went out of their way to kind of rescue her. That she'd be like, I can go back inside and you can rescue me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I thought that was awesome. It's definitely a highlight of the movie for me.
yeah, it's typical Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
But then they set upon
I think you could say
Jotunheim, how do you
it could be Harley's
Harley's
take on the warehouse scene. That's her warehouse scene. When we talk about big fight scenes
they're
in
using the Tinker to
DCEU,
get
we
in.
always go to
I want to say
the
the
epitome
shot
of
of them in
them
the
being
rain
the Batfleck
is
warehouse scene.
absolutely brilliant with the music. One of my favorite scenes from the film. The music track. I've been listening to the soundtrack non-stop since I watched the movie with all the songs. Even the score for this movie is pretty good as well. If you took out the actual songs and just had the score is still badass. The score is still pretty well done. But that scene where they're just walking on a line in the rain, at the end you have Milton as well. Who in the trailer breakdowns, people were like, "Who's that character? Oh my god, a mysterious character." It's just Milton. It's just Milton.
R.I.P. Milton.
Yeah, but that was brilliant. Casey, I know you love great shots in cinema, but that one right there, come on, has to be one of the best DCU shots we've seen.
Which one?
The one where they're walking in the rain towards you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do like that. I do like that scene, and it's cool that the music also it pretty much slows down. It's very somber, slow music that plays when when they enter in slow motion. But also that scene has the Harley looking at Rick Flag and them basically it was kind of a nod to how they were teaming up again and going and fighting the bad guy. This is the second time they're doing it, and now they're old friends, and now they're doing it. So yeah, that was another quick nod in that scene, and I like that. And obviously that was also a foreshadow to what was coming in the end.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting back to kind of like we mentioned like how James Gunn really respected what David did, because he does bring that kind of like camaraderie that was established between Harley and Flag, kind of like right there.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. That look was everything. The wink then from Harley while she's eating. Why is she eating an apple? That scene, that was weird. But she's just eating an apple.
I just appreciated that everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people in the movie were just eating and sleeping. That's just how people are,
That is true.
And even when you show,
very Ocean's 11 type of thing.
Yeah, even when you show certain things about how you see CCTV footage of people in the background and guards just chilling. In other movies, they just show them chilling and talking to each other, right? But that's rarely the case. People are usually on their phones or smoking or eating or sleeping, and that's what they were doing here, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, well, that shot for me was just brilliant. I loved it, I really did. But then they get into Jotunheim, and one group breaks off to go down with the Tinker to probably stop Starro to see what's going on there. The rest of the crew are putting explosives around in case things go south, or maybe they always planned on using the explosives. But yeah, now this scene where it's revealed that the American government are the ones who actually obtained Starro in space. The astronauts brought him to Earth, experimented on him for 30 years. That's what the Tinker was doing. They were experimenting on women, men, children to see what Starro was, what he could do. And Starro, obviously, I think he grows if the more kind of people he puts his little mini starfishes on, he grows bigger and bigger, I think, is what I gathered from it. But it was the American government who actually did this. And I'm like, oh my God, really? So Amanda Waller sent the Suicide Squad into Corto Maltese to cover up this big thing in case it got out. Because it would look bad for the American government, the army, the people. It would just look bad. So, but she obviously gave different instructions to each member. She told Peacemaker, look, I need this evidence destroyed, because Peacemaker will do anything for the American way. He will do it for peace. If she had told Rick Flag what exactly the American government had been doing in Corto Maltese, he would have been against it, and she knew that. That's why she didn't tell him. So
That's why she sent him with Team A.
Exactly. Yeah, it all comes back around. And then the realization that from Rick Flag and also Ratcatcher, who's probably the heart of the movie and is probably the most grounded and is a character
relatable.
She's relatable, but she's been thrown into a scenario that you wouldn't think she would be in, because she's a villain, but she's not really a villain at all. She's just put into a bad, sticky situation because of what happened to her father and stuff like that. But they realize that this is bad. And then Peacemaker shows up, and Rick Flag is like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be putting explosives out." And and then Rick Flag's like, "I'm gonna expose the American government. I'm not taking this shit. I'm not being a puppet for these people." And then Peacemaker takes out his gun and says, "Sorry, I can't let you do that." That whole sequence was fantastic, and John Cena's dramatic acting for me was brilliant, and their fight sequence. But like, come on.
I actually did believe him when he said that, because of the circumstance and because of how many times he said throughout the movie that he would do anything for peace, right? So that moment just I just believed him. Like, he totally would say that and would do that. So yeah, it worked for me.
Yeah,
definitely, 100%. And it reminded me, I might get criticized online for this, but it reminded me at the ending of Watchmen. It really did, of Dr. Manhattan killing Rorschach, because he knows it, for the betterment of humanity, it's better to cover this up and not let it get out. And Peacemaker feels that's the right thing as well. It's the best thing for the American people if this doesn't get out. So he's willing to kill Rick Flag, and that fight between the two of them. And as I said earlier on, that about the reflection through the helmet, it reminded me of Signs, where we get to see in the water, the glass of water, or the TV reflection, the alien fight, or the alien. So I appreciate that shot from James Gunn. Rokan, that whole sequence, what did you think of it, man?
I loved it mainly because of the fact that you see that Peacemaker and Flag are two sides of the same coin right there. They are both these pro-American, soldiers. The only difference is kind of like Flag is the more idealistic one, and like Peacemaker is the more kind of like, he's the loyalist. He's loyal to a T. That it's kind of destructive in a lot of ways, as you see right there. And I like kind of like that they kind of are clashing because of that. You know what I mean? It's, to me, it's a very kind of like, it's very kind of like, as you mentioned, it's very kind of like Watchmen type of clash right there, or like, Daredevil and Punisher, of these two just clashing right there. And I saw someone on Twitter compared Peacemaker to Comedian if he didn't get the joke, which I thought that was kind of like the perfect kind of like comparison right there. And yeah, it's a great fight scene between the two of them right there. And I like seeing kind of like, Cena's amazing right there, because you see him when he kills Rick Flag, you see him like killing him with this look on his face that you can tell he regrets doing it, but also he's kind of like, it's a job that has to be done. Like there's complexity to him that I did not expect at all,
Yeah. And about the comedian thing, I think, if I remember correctly, Peacemaker was the inspiration for Comedian, or Comedian was the inspiration for Peacemaker, something like that. So that's, I thought that was pretty good when, he says, Rick Flag says, Peacemaker, what a joke. That was, brilliant. I thought that was a brilliant scene. Absolutely amazing.
His delivery
yes.
definitely made it. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's the scene for me that made me sit up in my seat and think, yeah, this is a really good movie, and I really like what the like what's being presented to me on screen.
Yeah.
in this scene. And John Cena kills it as acting, and Joel Kinnaman. So fair play to the two of those. If those two didn't act that scene the way they did, and that's the most important scene of the whole movie for me. And if they didn't put in the performance they did, then it just maybe the movie isn't as good.
It's quite a pivotal scene for me as well, Sean, in regards to the air cut, in fact, as well as what I think will happen with Peacemaker's arc throughout his own show, with that whole line, Peacemaker, what a joke, with the way that Peacemaker reacted was not like he brushed that off, he really let that set in. And the way he was acting with Ratcatcher too is he didn't want to kill her, which he probably wouldn't have minded before even hearing someone say Peacemaker, what a joke. But he knew it was a job he had to get on with, but he was still having conflicting emotions that he was holding back. The whole thing with the air cut, though, I don't know if I can really say without, because I think regardless of whether the air cut gets released or not, I don't know. Does anyone want me to say why I thought that scene in this film was pivotal towards that?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, we know Diablo survives in David Ayer's original version of Suicide Squad.
Right.
But we know someone has to die in that film as well. There was a swap. I think a lot of that was to do with optics from the studio about women, really, and making them not look weak or anything like that. Enchantress was originally meant to die. And that is why we know Diablo lives. It was a swap, really.
I thought of that because...
woman.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that drastically feels like it links up more to James Gunn's film more than the theatrical version did.
Right.
Because if Enchantress is dead, then Rick Flag will join her now that he's been stabbed in the heart, ironically, when that was the key to keeping Enchantress in line before you use that to kill her off entirely.
Oh, that's really good.
I didn't think about that.
And I just watched Suicide Squad just like 2 days ago, I think, and so it's very fresh in my mind. And when that scene happens, when they, end Enchantress, that's over, right? And then they kind of walk back, and then there's close up to the actors' faces, and then they go back, and she's back. So at that moment, I did think that maybe in the original one, she did die, and because that makes no sense. Like, she just tears off the black Enchantress mask and just wakes up. It makes no sense. So I did think that in the original, probably she died, and that does definitely make sense.
Yeah, it does link up to James' film much more than the theatrical version. Like I was saying, very symbolic that Flag would get stabbed in the heart, the same way Enchantress using Dune's body would have to been killed by the heart. Although I believe in the air cut, June sacrifices herself because she takes over the body entirely after fighting Enchantress within, or something like that. But it all symbolically links up better. It's like they really had direct, in-depth conversations about David's film together, him and James.
Yeah, I did, because look, even recently, I mean, not to just get too tangential, but even recently when James and Air talked, they said that they did have a long conversation about everything, and so I'm just assuming that they probably had a phone call, and he told them everything. So it makes sense.
It's an interesting comparison, Hugo. I really like that, and especially the shot of looking at Rick Flag's heart while he's getting stabbed. It kind of is a way of showing his heart was too pure or something like that. His emotion was through his heart instead of his head, maybe, which I thought was an interesting shot. So and then Ratcatcher is witnessing all of this. But before that, as Hugo said, John Cena's character is really hit by that line, "Peacemaker, what a joke." John Cena knows,
and there's blood on his face.
Yeah, it's just really well done. And he's like, I what I'm doing is wrong, but this is my code. I have to stick by this. It's kind of like in some instances, Batman doesn't necessarily kill. where he doesn't outright kill someone, murder somebody. Peacemaker's like, this is my code. I will do anything. And he knows that now that Ratcatcher has seen him do this, and she now has the evidence, he has to kill her. He has to. He doesn't want to. He'd rather not. But even Ratcatcher says this: just destroy the evidence, let me live. But he can't. What's the line he said to Ratcatcher?
I'm thorough or something.
Yeah, very thorough. Yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting piece of dialogue to throw at someone. I'm thorough.
I know I would have wanted it to sort of play out a bit longer with Ratcatcher being really worried as Peacemaker really thinks it through while he's holding the gun at her and she's staring at the barrel. I would have liked him to have just done a shush and just said really evilly, just psychotically, just said peace. But I know it would have to be handled in such a way to not sound corny like that. So I'm kind of glad James didn't do it in case it would have come across that way.
Yeah. And I love that I love that moment mainly for Danielle's performance right there. She's crying and terrified out of her mind right there. Like she's incredible right there. And I just like the only thing Cena can say is just, I'm sorry, kid. Like there's just kind of like there's that part of him that, as you mentioned, he knows kind of like that this is wrong, but he's also has to adhere to, the peace at any cost type of ideology that he has.
Yeah. And then Bloodsport drops right there and sees him, and that's again a callback to the bus scene where they said to each other, "I'm gonna save you out of here" and all that. So like the setups and callbacks are amazing in this movie.
Yeah, even just as we're jumping a little bit forward, smaller bullets. The John Cena character said Idris Elba when they first meet, smaller bullet goes goes right through the bullet. So and then I look at a blogger, I think Luis Fernando, who's also a box office analyst on Twitter. You guys may follow him. He puts out some really good stats about movies and how they do on streaming and box office. But he said a few weeks ago that this movie kind of reminded him of Quentin Tarantino and how he directs, and he got a lot of shit for this. And I was like thinking to myself, really, Quentin Tarantino? But then I watched the movie, and there's actually, the chapters element, and also telling the story out of order, jumping back and forth. Yeah. And just as Peacemaker is about to kill Ratcatcher, it jumps to the side of Jotunheim, and it says 8 minutes previously or 8 minutes ago. And I actually, the second time around, I timed it on my phone. I just took a quick look at my phone to see what time it was. And then when we get back to the exact moment we left, I checked, and it was exactly 8 minutes. So that was pretty cool from James Gunn. How
you did that? Wow.
Yeah,
nice.
it was exactly
I still have to watch it the second time. I probably will.
Dude, even, taking the Peacemaker motto.
Yeah. I just had to. I was very curious. But we get to see kind of Bloodsport and Harley and King Shark, and they're kind of, the building is about to, but it is blown up. It's about to fall apart. Even King Shark gets into an interaction with some weird fish, which I'm guessing are some alien fish or something like that. I don't know. They're weird, but they try to eat him. But they fight those off. Milton gets killed, in that kind of sequence as well. Who's Milton? I thought it was pretty funny. I laughed. Yeah. Did you guys?
I was actually with Harley on that one because I literally forgot that she was. I didn't know who Milton was, and I was like, "Oh shit!" But I didn't notice him while they were entering the tower because he was right behind everyone, running towards it, and I was like, "Why is he here?" And I did think that. So
yeah, especially when Flag took the gun away from him and said, "No, not you," as if to say you're staying
exactly.
The driver. So Milton made his own decision that he went into business for himself. Poor guy.
Yeah. And to answer BC, he asked, so did Kinnaman and Cena outact and surpass the anticipation for Elba and Robbie? I would say yes.
Yeah.
For me, for sure.
He's definitely the star of this movie. He has a lot of dialogue. Pretty cool action, and I think he was my favorite character. That scene, the Peacemaker, what a joke, all that kind of sequence. That's what made him my favorite character. And then to see him, he obviously he's going to get his own HBO Max show, but Idris Elba's character kind of falls through the levels of the building, Bloodsport, where he can survive those falls. But then he lands down in front of Peacemaker, who's about to kill Ratcatcher exactly 8 minutes later, which is pretty awesome. And the board, it was a very quick sequence. I was expecting maybe a piece of dialogue or what the hell are you doing? But I like how we already know why this scene is happening. We know why Peacemaker's about to kill Ratcatcher. I like how Bloodsport didn't go, what's happening here, and then Peacemaker explains everything like a villain,
Yeah.
that kind of way, or Ratcatcher explains it.
That's what I liked about Gunn, because he just didn't give that outright exposition, because we knew all that, right? So there was no need for it.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing with King Shark when you got to see the people kissing, driving by.
Yes.
We don't need to see backstory. That tells it all, and we already knew.
We don't need exposition because we've seen it. And Bloodsport's character is it works with him saying that I don't care what's happened. I care for Ratcatcher too. I don't care for you. We've never seen eye to eye on this mission.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And then they both shoot at the same time. Bloodsport's bullet goes through John Cena's, and he hits him in the neck. But I was like, he's not really dead, is he? He's going to come back, because he was going to die. He would have did what he did to Black Hawk, or what he did to Mongol, or one of those characters. He would have brutally murdered them. But I kind of had a feeling he'd come back. But yeah,
I actually did think he died.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you think the bullet was good enough, or do you think they should have had an actual fight sequence?
No, I think like you said, we would expect that would be prolonged in some way, but knowing how Peacemaker is, he would instantly just shoot him, right? So I don't think that making it any other way would work, because looking at Peacemaker, he was absolutely going to shoot. He was not going to have a dialogue. He was not going to say his monologue or anything like that, So it did make sense to me, and I did feel it was the right choice.
Yeah.
I agree. First off, with the bullets clashing into it, Viking and I are big fans of the movie Wanted, so it kind of gave me like a Wanted vibe.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, no, I'm fine with the fact that there was the only competition you need is just them shooting at each other, because we've established, very early on in the movie that they were trying to kind of like outbro each other with, how many people they can shoot and whatnot. So I feel like that was kind of like the better type of approach, rather than a fight sequence, or seeing a monologuing, or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely interesting. But then we get to kind of the showdown. Starro escapes, and he has set himself upon the city, and he shoots out his mini starfish to control the people. But so we're left with the final Suicide Squad, which is Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, King Shark, Polka Dot Man, and Ratcatcher. So that's our crew for the last big fight. And Amanda Waller doesn't want them to fight. She's like, this is good for us if this government is in turmoil, or this country's in a bad position, which is kind of interesting, because what if Starro did take over this entire city? Like, would they go to another country? Would Starro take on, would he go to America? Like, what would the American do then? Which is interesting. Would the Justice League come in and save the day? Like, what exactly is going on in that? That would have been actually cool if Batman and Superman came in and take down Starro. But that's what happens when you have a universe. So they fight, but they don't want Amanda Waller doesn't want them to, but then they get a change of heart. But these are supposed to be villains, but is it Ratcatcher's innocence that turns these people into wanting to fight against this Starro? Like, do they realize that this is a bad thing for these people, and they can actually make a difference? Like, why does Bloodsport for you guys turn around in that scene?
I thought that for me, when I was watching that scene, the camera was on Bloodsport, right? So one thing that stood out to me in his acting in that scene was that he was firstly, he was just following orders, and he just wanted to go back, right? That's his primary instinct. But he kept hearing the screams and the voices from the women and children and all of them that getting slaughtered there. And he was hearing that, and obviously he probably have thought that he has to be a leader in order for the team to work. So at that moment, it was another callback to that leader thing in the beginning that was established. And I thought that's what made him turn back. And I heard the screams that were going on in the background. So I think that was on purpose.
Yeah. What do you guys think? You go.
Well, before I say my piece, you know how I was saying how much I love the costume design for the film, that they're all weird and wacky designs, most of them.
Yeah.
With Bloodsport, did anyone else get that sort of H.R. Geiger-esque design, like the Batman Forever Batmobile and the sonar suit? It just, that face just reminds you of a Xenomorph face, and I absolutely love that. So I was crushed to bits when it got destroyed when he was trying to help dying.
The badass.
But yeah, I thought the same as Krypton, really, that it all part of the leadership arc that he was going through. And I think it's always just going to be implied to the audience that the characters are thinking the same thing. This could get worse. You can't trust Starro's instincts, because this is the only time you've met Starro, that he's not going to spread over and take over the whole world because of what's happened to him or it. And the rest of the squad are like that. Harley's not going to question that because she's lost Flag, she's lost Boomerang to this mission. And
she had a javelin.
Flag would do that too. The Flag would stand up and say, "No, Amanda, I'm going to draw the line like I did last time. I'm staying. I've got to. This mess has to be cleaned up, and this is my squad." And Bloodsport was just exactly the same. This could affect his daughter. This could. This would after almost losing Ratcatcher 2, he could lose her again. And if they go out in a blaze of glory, at least they tried to save the world. They tried to do their mission, even if it was not the way, again, Waller wanted it to go.
Yeah. Rokan?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I looked at that moment as kind of like, because the whole thing with Ratcatcher is that she is trying to she wants to send some good that is in Bloodsport still. And Bloodsport just kind of like brushes it off, being like, look, I'm a shithead. There's no good in me whatsoever. And kind of like at that moment is kind of like when it kind of comes out. So I looked at that as just kind of like that callback, just kind of like right there of him showing that there's a tiny bit of good left in him. And the same thing with Harley too, considering the fact that you remember at the end of Suicide Squad, you know, she makes kind of like the point that the world doesn't give a shit about them, so we should let it burn. Yeah. And yet, she says she kind of like tricks the Enchantress because she, had threatened the squad. And I think she kind of like, it's kind of a similar moment like that where Flag's dead, and Boomerang is dead, and, Javelin's dead and everybody's dead. So for her at that moment, it's kind of like, what else do I got left to lose at that moment? So I feel like it's her just kind of being like, what the hell? And that's kind of why they just kind of like, venture off into it. I think they all just kind of feel like they have nothing more left to lose. So they might as well go out big, if it happens.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And also it probably has to do with her arc in Birds of Prey, where she started caring for Cass, and because of that, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back to the haircut, with what we heard from them, that she realizes the squad are her true friend. She shouldn't go back to Joker. She should go with the people she cares about and protect them.
Yeah. This movie has a lot to say about doing the right thing. Like, what is it to be a human being, or what is it just to live? And when Starro, just before he dies, he goes, "I was happy enough floating around space and looking at the stars."
That was so good.
I love that.
So
It
good.
actually it made me feel for the character. Or Teen Shark just wants love. All he knows is violence and to eat people and stuff like that, you know. And then Ratcatcher is this Ratcatcher is probably the most grounded character of any of the Suicide Squad members. She has heart. She has gone through stuff. She's the most she's probably the youngest character, but she is the most mature. Mature is the word I'm looking for. And that rubs off the rest of the Suicide Squad. And I think that's actually what makes John Cena's character realize that he's doing the bad thing. Now, we don't know for sure would he have pulled the trigger and actually killed her or not. Probably, but we don't know because Bloodsport came down. So, yeah, I just think it's very, very interesting. And then they have this big fight with Starro. And, you know, it is... it would have been cool to see that go on for longer, or maybe Starro to be more of a threat with more special abilities or something like that. But then you got Bloodsport fighting the people who are just slaves for Starro. Like, is he killing us? And people, can they be saved? Probably not. But yeah, I thought it was a fine sequence. No, KC, you thought it was a little bit short, but or maybe Starro was a little bit limited on what he could do to them. But yeah, I thought it was. I really liked the shot of Bloodsport taking out his gun and it kind of transformed into a bigger gun. Like, that's cool.
That's something from Rocket.
And the score for that whole sequence, brilliant.
Yes.
So, did you guys think the third act was a letdown? Because I was like,
no,
there's so much action in this movie, and we haven't even gotten to the third act yet, and we haven't even met the big villain yet, and now we're over here. I'm like, this is awesome.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt. I thought that the second act was just it just kept going just between the characters, and I was just waiting for Starro, and that's probably one of the reasons why I thought that his stay was very short. Because the whole movie they were building it up, and they showed parts of him inside, and it was very alien-like. And you know, I did like that. So at the end, I just wish that it was a bit longer, but I did really like the third act, and you know, I felt that everything was executed perfectly, and even with the when Starro just first appears and sends out its you know, mini Starros, the scene with the military general, when he looks around and he just, you know, feels helpless, that also was really good. I thought that was you know, specifically they showed him because on his, you know, shoulders there are so many stars, there's medals everywhere, and it just shows that, you know, you can achieve so much with humans and all that, but anything can unexpectedly come and then you can just be helpless and destroyed. That's also why I thought that was kind of similar to COVID.
But he was a cruel bastard. He killed all those birds, burnt them alive.
Yeah. His best friend's birds. Shows you.
Yeah.
He said, oh, he was an idealist. I'm a realist. We don't use Star as a deterrent. We use it as a weapon.
Maybe power corrupts people. The American government have this power, and they use it over Starro to use him as an experiment. And I would have maybe liked to see Starro not take over those astronauts at the start when we first meet him. Because I would have liked what the American government did to him, and that turns him evil by the end of the movie. You know, that's what makes him want to take over the city. Instead of, why did he do that to those people at the very start? Maybe they were
because they captured.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they actually did some experimentation in the beginning, but we didn't see the footage of that.
Yeah, that could be it. But I would have just liked to see him be innocent at the start, but then he's taken by the American astronauts, and then he's experimented on, and then he turns evil. I think that would have been a little bit cooler than what they did. But yeah, the sequence was awesome, and you know, Polka Dot Man, he goes, "I'm a superhero. I'm a motherfucker. I'm a fucking superhero," and and then he just dies.
You knew that he was gonna die there.
Yeah, but come on, he was so cool, and it actually felt, because throughout the movie he seems like a very nervous person. Maybe that deals with accepting themselves and you know, confidence and stuff like that. But that was when he finally became a person. When he finally became who he was always supposed to be.
Yeah.
And who was he? That's why he was experimenting on, was to be a superhero. And now he's finally a superhero. And then his his new life has just ended. He's killed. It was
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
tragic.
It was one of my only gripes with that final act was Polka Dot. Not necessarily that he died, but the way he died. It was made up for by Ratcatcher 2 grieving for him, because she showed so much compassion towards him as well, even if we didn't see so much. There was enough saying that she was sort of, again, being his mascot and everything to cheer him on. I wish that Harley had given him the javelin, or some way had her help him get into the eye, and then when Harley thinks it's her moment to die, he pushes her back out because of the whole polka dots on his skin condition that kept happening. And I thought that should really have been, if you're going to make a big deal out of that, James, that sounds like it's going to be how he sacrifices himself.
That would have been cool.
And if he goes into the eye with Harley, the javelin being the way to get through the eye to pierce it, push her out when they start coming on his skin, and then just smile at her and leave as Harley's just being thrown out. I think that would have worked, and the rats just leaving as they've killed off everything within as well. The final explosion being polka dots, it would have been beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I like it.
That would have worked way better, actually. I mean, like, well, first off, getting into it, I said that I felt like wish Starro could have been written better, and bring up the fact that you'd like to see Starro start innocent and then become evil. I'd be like, actually, that would have worked really well and give Starro a sense of tragedy, because you look at like the last two DC films that have come out, like with their villains, Maxwell Lord and Steppenwolf, and the commonalities that they are tragic villains thrust into doing desperate acts. And I would have liked to have seen Starro kind of like follow that trend of being this innocent life form that through experimentation just kind of like desperately out of desperation to kind of like survive and fear kills kills the poor Maltese government, and kind of like is labeled as a threat in that sense. I would have liked to have seen some humanity to Starro rather than just be a big bad villain for them to face. But
I think there was actually it was implied by Starro that, I don't think literally, but a lot of people, even Grace Randolph, took it literally when Starro said that the Thinker raped him through the bodies of the women that had stars on them, which worries me about the character of the Thinker. I really hope it wasn't a literal message, because it would have been just as powerful if it was metaphorical. But yeah.
I mean, the Thinker is a fucking scumbag. There is no doubt about it. So yeah, I mean, like, so I don't know, but I like I said, I just wish there was like a little bit more of an outward humanity with Starro. But getting into the third act, like I said, I do like, I do wish like you that Polka Dot Man would have done something more cooler rather than just kind of like be comedically killed off like that. Which, I mean, it's funny, but like I said, I do agree with you. Should jumped right in and just kind of like used his rash to kill Starro. It would have been kind of like a cool, like it would be a final kind of like like his final chance at kind of like redeeming himself, especially considering the fact that his mom was responsible for all of this as like a final way of flipping her off, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess Gunn just wanted to make Ratcatcher the one who does that.
Yeah. The Ratcatcher saves the day in the end. The rats beat Starro, and like Harley Quinn carried around the javelin throughout the movie because Javelin says carry this for, and then he never got to finish the sentence. It could have been something so meaningless or more meaningful than what happened in the movie, but it was a kind of cool journey that she goes on with the javelin, and it's used then to defeat Starro. But the rats sequence, she brings all the rats out and she should protect them, Bloodsport, where the rats are all coming because he's a fear for them. I thought that was pretty cool. And I actually thought that was from the trailers, that was her death scene. But it's actually her
me too.
day. So, and
It's
and the
actually
rats.
symbolic too by saying that, how they establish that basically, like Hugo, you said that the Suicide Squad is basically the rats, right? So, Starro being, taken down by rats is kind of like symbolic of, the lowliest of lowly creatures is actually what saved the day.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's such a weird power where she can get all the rats to come
Yeah.
at once like that. But
I
they
liked
overtake
when
them.
in the beginning when Amanda Waller was going through the jails and she was like, "This is Ratcatcher too," and she controls rats. And John Cena was like, "Yeah, yeah, I got that," because there's no explanation needed, right, from the name.
Yeah, it was.
I know a lot of people were wondering how she even got in prison, but I'm thinking she has to do what she had to do to survive. Yeah, that should be
Yeah,
obvious. And
yeah,
maybe there's a history of Batman that just didn't get bothered to be mentioned because it didn't need to be. If you knew Ratcatcher had been in Batman's Rogues Gallery, you would think instantly probably Batman had a hand in it. You just don't need to see it like in David's film.
yeah. It's cool to
Yeah,
actually see other characters in the background too in that scene. We saw Calendar Man, and there's another character called Kaleidoscope. She was there, and I didn't recognize the others, so there probably is more there.
I thought they could have did a better job in the makeup for Calendar Man.
Yeah,
I just thought it was very amateur. It was
basic. Yeah,
very, yeah, it just wasn't cool. It kind
Yeah.
of it reminded me of this stunt double for Jared Leto in Birds of Prey. I was like, that's
yeah,
not Jared. That's not Jared Leto. That's not Jared Leto.
Mm.
It would have been cooler to see. Look, they should have. After watching the Long Halloween, David Desmaclin was the perfect calendar man, and
yeah.
in this movie, he's polka dot man. But yeah, I would just like to see a little bit more work put into that. But yeah, look, they finally defeat Starro. Harley was able to go through the eye with the javelin and kills him. Yeah, and I thought the score, I just thought the ending was pretty cool. And then Idris Elba's character uses the documents or the files of the experiments against the man in the water. You
Yeah.
said all of us free. My daughter doesn't go to prison. Yeah, and man in the water kind of, instead of a man in the water getting annoyed by it, she kind of has respect for Bloodsport. Because
Yeah.
she did make him into a leader, and if she was in the same position, this is what she'd do for her own benefit. So I did like that. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she looked over at her crew for turning on her. Why do we think that she killed the FBI agents in Suicide Squad, but she didn't kill her crew in the Suicide Squad?
I mean,
Well, this is what I was thinking.
Bloodsport had the leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that why she didn't kill the woman that hit her from behind? Maybe she will kill her in the series. Maybe they shot a scene or
Yeah.
something like that. I think
Well-
maybe they will, but
I'm thinking, Sean, that it's like what I've been using to apply my headcanon to how it works out with being.
she didn't she didn't even send the woman that hit her. Did she? It was the but she didn't hit her. It was the other
This is
one.
one with glasses, I believe.
Yes, the smaller woman. She hit her from behind. It was the blonde woman and the guy with the glasses. They went to go see Peacemaker. Now maybe she killed the woman who hit her, and we'll get to see that in the Peacemaker series. Maybe they shot a quick scene, or maybe it just didn't show up in the movie. But yeah, she didn't go, so maybe she did kill her.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was surprised at that as well. Maybe she did kill her, but yeah, I was surprised it wasn't James Gunn's girlfriend, Jennifer Holland. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was it was interesting to see. But the Suicide Squad defeated Starro, and they all get to live happily ever after. Do you think we will get to see these characters return?
I do think we will see some of these characters, especially Bloodsport. I think they established that he would be a returning character, probably like a leader in the in the future. So I did think that at least Bloodsport will return, and I don't know if Peacemaker would join the Suicide Squad in the future, because of trust issues and stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, nobody knows about this. Only Bloodsport and a few others. Like the new Suicide Squad could have Peacemaker and a whole new crew.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I mean, like I mean, I hear rumors that Margot's going to do another movie after this. Some have said it's Sirens. I don't know. I mean, I hope. As for Bloodsport, I would kill for Bloodsport to be the next bad guy in Man of Steel 2 if that ever happens, and see Cavill and Elba go against each other. That'd be pretty cool. So I honestly don't know. I could see, Ratcatcher, considering the fact that she's a Batman villain. I don't know if I could see her face off against Ben Affleck's Batman, but I could see her face off against Leslie Grace's Batgirl.
but is she a villain? Why would she? It's very interesting.
Thing too, yeah. I mean,
Somebody would kill Sebastian.
yeah.
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 But I think these characters are too interesting and too good to lose. I really do. I think you have to do something with them, whether it be a HBO Max series like Peacemaker or a smaller budget movie. I just think King Shark, Ratcatcher, and Bloodsport are too valuable to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
So.
Oh, Hugo just dropped.
But the first post-credit scene was, well, not post-credit, but kind of post-credit, was Weasel returning. Did you guys like Weasel confirmed to be alive?
I thought it was just kind of like your standard end credit scene joke type of thing, which I was like, all right. I mean, I was like, that's fine. And then, wasn't like happy or laughing. It was kind of like, all right, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to see kind of like if Weasel goes into like the island, do you think he kind of tries to slaughter the rest of those commandos of who's left or something?
It could be just used for a gag. We never get to see Weasel ever again, but I was kind of slightly happy to see him alive because he's such a weird character.
Yeah.
I didn't get to answer your question because my connection cut out earlier. I would love to see a lot of those characters return if possible in other DC movies if they can't come back to a third Suicide Squad movie. I definitely would like to see all of them back that survived. I'd love to see Harley come back for a third Suicide Squad movie, and then if she doesn't come back after the third one, I'm happy with that because it'd be nice to just have more than just Amanda Waller for another movie carrying on from the first two. And I think this shows that it's a series that can work from having different directors tell different stories with different missions, with different casts of characters, and only a few coming back like Harley and, of course, Amanda. You need Amanda Waller there, otherwise Task Force Esque is even worse off than it was before. I've read the comic book where they've taken it off her hands and it has gone Kutsky, so they had to put it back in. And that's why I'd love to see Gavin O'Connor's script dusted off, and I think we should see his film with Deathstroke or the other script with Deathstroke. They need to be adapted in some way, maybe animated movies or even the next live action. It's too good to pass up that if you can go from David Ayer style to James Gunn style to another director's style with different ensembles, you can't miss the opportunity. That means anyone can have their own Suicide Squad movie, and even if you didn't like one of them, you might like another, you might like two of them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
I love Weasel. I was on another stream in the chat and someone was getting on to me about horrible stuff about James Gunn and children and the amount of lines brought up, and I was trying to defend by saying all the characters realistically react to lines like that with horror. Like Harley shoots the president, Peacemaker is looked at, even if it's a joke where he says, "I'll kill every man, woman, and child in the name of peace." They rightfully look at him and say, "You are nuts. You shouldn't be saying stuff like that." And then earlier, Weasel, he just doesn't want to be there. He's happy in Bell Revy, just licking the windows. And when it gets mentioned by Rick Flag, this creature killed a lot of children. And I saw from that crazy look in his eyes, he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to have done that. He didn't want to be on the plane. He wanted to be back in Bell Rev. He was very jittery, and no wonder he drowned. Yeah. It's like he's a hybrid who can't control his animal tendencies. So it looked like, to me at least, the way I interpreted it, he didn't want to kill those children, and he didn't want to be on this mission. He just wanted to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the post-credit scene was like a nice ending for him where, oh, he didn't die. Hopefully he doesn't kill anyone now. He just gets to be free and happy.
But Casey, the Peacemaker series, I was excited for because interested because John Cena, James Gunn. But now my excitement level is through the roof after watching this movie. I didn't know it was going to be a sequel series, to be honest. I don't think anybody really knew. What's your excitement levels right now for the Peacemaker HBO Max series that comes in January?
I'm definitely excited. I wasn't excited before. I knew that, yeah, James Gunn was involved and it's John Cena, but I didn't know what the character was like at all. So I didn't know what to expect. And that first poster of him was just like, oh, fuck, it's Peacemaker. So that was really funny. And I didn't know what to expect from that. So now that I've seen how violent and what kind of character this is, I'm totally excited for it.
Yeah, 100%. Will you guys watch the Peacemaker series now?
I am. I mean, when it was announced, I was kind of like everybody. I was just kind of like, why are we getting a Peacemaker before we've seen it as Peacemaker? Because I kind of would have liked to, kind of like judge that before, but it is what it is. So now that I've seen Cena as Peacemaker, I'm excited to see kind of like what they do with Peacemaker and kind of like what the government still needs him for at this point. And
save the fucking world.
Exactly, save the fucking world. So we'll be like, okay, we get to see what that means. I do know for a fact that it's also going to dive also into kind of like his origins as well. Like I'd read that Robert Patrick, the T-1000 himself, is playing his father.
Yeah.
Which I was like, all right, cool. I was like, maybe we actually get to see kind of like what sets him on the path. Why the fuck does he got that toilet seat on his head? Why? What leads him to this, and why? And what does he need to save the world for now? So I'm intrigued at kind of like what they're going to do now, and also the fact that Gunn's also extremely involved. I think he said he directed 5 of the 8 episodes. So I'm like, okay, so really, he has a giant hand in it, more so than I thought he would.
Yeah, and also it doesn't necessarily have to be a sequel. It could be like Arrow season 1. Like you could get flashbacks and present day stuff all in one season. So that would be great. And James Gunn today said that it's going to be even more grounded than the Suicide Squad. So maybe this will be the war film kind of vibe that we were expecting. Maybe this will have that.
It makes sense as well, because what did the Suicide Squad cost? 185 million. They're not going to give that budget for this TV show, so
Plus he doesn't have any superpowers.
Yeah, so I would expect a lot more acting scenes and stuff like that, which is okay. I don't mind that stuff. I think it's you've got 8 episodes. Go and explore the character. You go. I know we don't have HBO Max here, but I'm sure it will be available on Sky in some capacity. So you're going to definitely check it out.
I don't have Sky. I have Freeview. Oh
yeah.
I have to just go around to my brother's house like I did for Zack Snyder's Justice League and watch it on Now TV, hoping none of it doesn't scare the baby or anything, or that no one talks over it, and just Jasper and I have a good time. Maybe my other brother comes along too. If I can watch it, I will watch it. Otherwise, hopefully, I hope that Warner Brothers doesn't sue us UK and Irish fans over again and not give us a DVD Blu-ray physical release, like they have done with several animated movies that I have a bone to pick with them about, and live action.
Yeah.
Not just CGI,
we'll have to see. But Casey, out of 10, what would you give the Suicide Squad? I know you've only watched it once, but what's your initial rating?
I don't like giving ratings because
you don't. But just give one.
I don't know. I think a better question would be where I would rank this amongst the DCEU, and I would say that
I don't like that question because I don't like because my taste differs from whatever the weather is. You know what I mean?
Right. But I don't know, man.
Go ahead.
Maybe it will be 7, 8, maybe.
No, go ahead. Give a ranking.
Yeah. The ranking, I would say, was probably on 6th, tied with the previous Suicide Squad, because like I said, I do like a lot of elements that David Ayer brought into that movie, which you can actually see even if, it's overwhelmed and overshadowed by the editing and all that shit. You can see that what the story was. You can see somewhat what the characters, how they interacted with each other, the chemistry, the emotions, the bar scene, the entire dynamic between individual characters while they were going, to Enchantress and all that. The twist with Enchantress and stuff like that. I did find the tone of the movie as well. I did like a lot, and the score is just next level. I love that score, and I think that movie would just the same movie. It's the same exact movie with just better editing and the score that was released. I think that's still a really good movie. And I think it's just tied with that. I don't know, like you said, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I might like this one more, and sometimes I might like that one more. So yeah, I feel like it's justified to have it tied. So it's on 6th place. BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and then this.
And Rokan, what kind of ranking system do you prefer?
Well, I would kind of like put this in the middle. I like it. I like it more than Birds of Prey and Shazam and Wonder Woman 84. And and Studio Squad, as people on Twitter have called that. Mainly because of the fact that I don't feel like it's fair to compare it to David's film because we haven't seen it yet. So yeah. I kind of look at it like that. But I think it's, I would rank it kind of like in the middle, just with, in that kind of like circle of like Birds of Prey and like, Aquaman. But to me, it doesn't top Batman vs Superman's Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel, and the first Wonder Woman. And, that's just kind of like, where I'm kind of ranking it for now. Who knows? It could go up after repeat viewings or go down after repeat viewings. I don't know. But at the moment, that's kind of like where I'd rank. I enjoy the movie a lot. I think it's the lesson with this in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I said this to you guys, and I'll say it again. The lesson to learn from what those two films did is that if a studio lets the director make the movie they want to make with no interference, just kind of like, leaving them alone, we will like it. And I think those two films are evident of that. So that's kind of how I'll say on that. My say on that.
You go.
I agree.
Well, I know I gave it a 10 out of 10 on IMDb. I do that when I really, really enjoy a film for cinema. But I try and be more serious than that. I would knock it down to a 9, and that would be because I know my criticisms come off as nitpicks. I would have loved more character moments between Flag and Bloodsport specifically to do with that leadership arc, but I'm worried that had that been the case, it wouldn't have got through to Scream because it would link too much to the Ayer cut and and also it would make the audience, think too much that Flag might die. But even so, I think those would have been important character moments. I'd be open to an extended cut if James Gunn had extra footage he wanted to share with us on home release. If I were to rank it with the other DCEU films, Birds of Prey being at the bottom. I haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984 to this date, sadly, so I can't ever put that in until I've watched it.
Well,
but I'd say the Suicide Squad, or as I tongue-in-cheek like to call it, the Suicide Squad sequel, I put that at number 4 because I love... my top 3 are, of course, Man of Steel, BVS, and at number 1, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I can't put the air cut in as well, but Studio Squad, the dossier cut's lower. But it's like, that's my top 4 there. You've got the main Superman trilogy of the DCU, followed by the Suicide Squad sequel. And then everything else like Wonder Woman, Shazam, Aquaman, and then Birds of Prey. Hopefully I've not missed anything off.
Yeah, I know KC doesn't like Wonder Woman 84. I really like Wonder Woman 84. Rokan, do you like Wonder Woman 84?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you know, I think it could have been much better, but I mean, I like it enough to buy the 4K Blu-ray. That tells you anything.
Yeah, like I watched it twice in theaters. I haven't watched it since, and I really enjoyed it both times. Went to go see it with my little sister. Had a good time, you know. So maybe it looked better on a bigger screen. I don't know, Kissy, but a lot of the plot decisions you don't really like. But
yeah,
I did say it was around maybe 4 and 5 for me, or my DC ranking. But after the Suicide Squad, I'd say maybe an 8 out of 10. And I don't know where to rank it. I would say maybe this would come in 4 or 5 somewhere. You know, I really like Aquaman. I really like Wonder Woman 84. With more viewings of Suicide Squad, it might be number 4 cemented. But right now, it's kind of floating in between those ones. Of course, the top 3 is Snyder's. They won't be touched, I don't think, anytime soon. Maybe, I don't know if the Batman's not the DCU, is it? Black Adam, Flash may have a chance, but we'll see. But Snyder's ones for me are top tier. But I think the Suicide Squad had elements that are in common with Zack Snyder's word. You know, the Thinker, I forgot to talk about, said a line that if God existed, would he do this? You know, something like that was a line from him. Yeah. Really love that. And then, of course,
kind of like
Lex. Yeah, very, very, very like I like the Peacemaker. It kind of reminded me of Watchmen, Rorschach, Dr. Manhattan thing. So I think this is more in line with Zack Snyder's work, not completely, but it has elements more than, say, Shazam or Birds of Prey or any of the other DC movies. So I enjoyed that. But yeah, that was kind of our full breakdown of the Suicide Squad.
Did you love those visual chapter points, guys? I thought they reminded me of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but done in a different way. I just thought they added to it for me.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. I agree with you guys. And the only chapter title I didn't like was the Starro one, the Starro versus that looked like someone edited that on the phone. You know, you went from Operation Jotunheim to that. So it was fun. I like that it kind of looked like a comic book. But again, I would have preferred a different font.
I'd say this film has changed my view on Starro as a character. I never seemed to like him for some reason as a villain. I thought he was just almost too impossible to beat, like what Marvel had with the Brood in X-Men, and I never wanted to see him on screen. I remember reading the 90s Justice League remake story they did based on the original story, but with the 90s roster with Batman and the like. And I thought, I never want to see him on screen. How could you defeat him? I'm just lucky that everyone's alive. But James Gunn changed my whole perspective on Starro. I think it's a great character, and the idea of it being impossible odds, I think because it was a squad and not the league, it made me believe the drama, or that even if it's impossible, that they'll go down fighting, that they'll try. It's just amazing that he could do that for me, and I'm very thankful that I can now say I like Starro as a villain and a character. And it was Justice League I forgot from the ranking. So Justice League is at the bottom.
I didn't want to remind you, but yeah.
What? Like that movie doesn't fucking exist. Okay,
Yeah.
Hey, we can't be like Warner Brothers now saying the cuts of Snyder and Ayer didn't exist. We learn from history. We do not repeat it like they do.
Look, dude, I've Men in Black flashy thing myself from that movie, but I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that concludes our spoiler talk and breakdown. I'm sure we have missed something, and if I watch it, minute by minute, we'll definitely come up with way more things than we talked about. And I did really enjoy the movie. I thought that was a worthy DCEU addition, and I thought James Gunn did a pretty good job, and I think that he should do more movies. Maybe not more Suicide Squad movies, because I would love for this franchise to be that every movie has a different roster and has a different director, so we get different styles of movies for the Suicide Squad. So I would really love that.
Yeah, 100%. I will probably talk about that next week more about James Gunn. Is he a fit for DC, and what can he do going forward, and the box office results of the Suicide Squad, which seem to be very interesting. But people are also forgetting that there's a pandemic out there.
Yeah.
So I just think the narrative being run is pretty poor because they don't like James Gunn and stuff like that. But we'll talk about that definitely more next week. But thanks, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. It's been
thank you guys for joining. And thank you everyone in the chat. Today the chat has been very active, and I just love reading your comments. Once again, this chat app has been, acting up, so I didn't pull up everyone's comments here. So apologies for that. But yeah, it was really fun, and I really loved, interacting with you guys. And thank you for joining, everyone. And we will definitely be talking about this more in the coming week. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Real Talk Live, and you can hit us up anytime. We can, chat about the Suicide Squad or any other stuff that you love. So it's at The Real Talk Live on all social media, and you can follow me at Krypton Cage on all social media. Where can they find you, Maher?
Yes, Movies That Matter on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And YouTube as well, of course. Hugo always watches my videos and leaves a comment, which I definitely appreciate big time. And also, I should remind people that tomorrow night, I'm actually doing a little bit of a spoilers discussion on my channel with Lewis from the Movie Buffs. So it should be just going through some scenes that we liked and some of the characters. So that should be fun. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Where can they find you, Rokan?
So you can find me on Twitter and Vero as Roku9413. And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm just that real Roku.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hugo?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at The Other Who Fan. I've also got my Facebook actor page, which is my name, Hugo Allen Stevens. I won't spell it out because it will take forever and we're trying to say goodbye. So if you find my Twitter account, that's how my name is spelt. I have my film studio page, Slow Burn Studios. Name is as implies. Everything's taking forever, so don't expect anything just yet. But we're making some ground. And I've got my Vimeo page, which again is my name. Go to my Twitter. You'll know how it's spelt then. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you guys for joining. We had a lot of fun.
It was a blast being here, man. Hope to come back here again.
For sure. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining, and take care.